part of what started me on a whole inquiry about gender was seeing a film which you can see online. It's a little dated, but it's called The Burning Times. And it's just an hour-long film that was made by a Canadian woman filmmaker. And it tells the story of the 300 to 400 year period in European history where somewhere between 50,000 and some millions of women were systematically tortured and persecuted, and many of them burned for the supposed crime of being witches. And when I saw it, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was so shocked. I thought, first of all, this is the first thing that helps me understand why it's so scary for me to speak in public and to speak my truth out loud. Because I do believe that everyone alive today is living with the epigenetic fallout from that period, and that versions of that happened all over the world. And the other thing was, I thought, how could I not have been taught this in school? You know, and I just heard that DeSantis has banned over 800 books in the education system in Florida. And, you know, at the time that I saw The Burning Times, it started me on a whole research diving into what happened during that time. And what I found was that every system was shifted from the primary purview of women to the primary purview of men. So, for instance, at the beginning of The Burning Times, women had more economic wealth in Europe than men did. But there was a huge economic shift through The Burning Times because the men were rewarded for turning in women. And at the beginning of The Burning Times, the women were the midwives and the doulas, the death doulas, right? And the caregivers, the herbalists. And they were the first to be targeted as witches. And, you know, on and on. I mean, the land use changed and the enclosure movement happened. And I just began to see, my gosh, everything shifted then. And I'm sure that's one of several times, but I think that was a really huge impact. And at the time, a very bright and caring man said to me, how do you imagine, Nina, that the men at that time could have been motivated to do such a thing? And I said, and this goes right back to JJ's comment, I said, because the power of women to control birth is the most awesome power on earth. And I think they must have, I think on some level, I mean, it was also the Catholic Church asserting itself in the Inquisition and all that. But, you know, it was a dominator model that I think arose in response to women's power. And, you know, women as the life bringers is part of it, for sure. You know, and it's interesting because I'm a student of social movements, and there are so many now and all over the world that are being led by women, but they don't get mainstream media coverage. You know, you don't really hear about them. I would offer, I'll do this on the network too. My husband just finished a 10-part film series that's kind of fascinating. It's more than kind of fascinating. It's insanely relevant. And you would be interested, JJ, because it's about bringing together the worlds of astrology and social movements and history. And it's called The Changing of the Gods. And you can find it online. And it shows the arc of human history through our social movements in relation to certain planetary pictures as they relate to the Earth. And it's stunning because it's like the first time that astrology has actually been not only explained in a remarkable way, but presented in a way that actually gives evidence for a conscious universe, which is not something we are mostly brought up with.